Hello and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2. We're here in Brookshire County, flying past Tacoma and our new highway bridge, and in this video, we're going to continue expanding this highway, as well as developing some of the roads around Lincoln a bit further. And so we've been having this push recently to finish up our highway network, or at least get it to a state where it's connecting to at least every city on the map, and we're going to get even closer in this video by, I think, connecting this end that we have here over to our end in Pittsburgh. So we'll bring those together. I'm not sure how we'll bring them together or where at the moment, but we will get those to connect. And then I think we're also going to put together some more roads around Lincoln so we can have a bit more of a robust connection here, and maybe even bring our highway up into Roswell. I'm still not sure if that's the direction we want to go with that. And so this is going to be largely a building focused episode. There's not going to be too much talking through things, as I think we really just want to get some progress made on this highway so we can pretty much be done talking about it for at least a little bit. So we're gonna get all this connected up, and then we'll be back probably to check in at some decent milestones, and then when we're pretty close to being finished. Alright, and so here's our first sort of milestone of this project. So now we have two ends of our highway connected. We have our end coming from Tacoma and passing Lincoln, and our end passing Pittsburgh here, now connected by this interchange here. It is quite large, but I wanted something unique, and we were building just a standard clover interchange, and then I realized that we do have some interchanges already built out for us. I maybe in retrospect maybe would have liked to go with this one. I kind of think this one looks pretty cool, and it seems a bit more realistic than what we chose, but I guess we can save that for another interchange later on down the line. But this provides us with a nice, unique portion of the map. It's not the same interchanges as always, and it wasn't too hard to build because it was already made. We just had to update the streets to match what we're currently using. And ultimately, in the end, that actually did save us quite a bit of space. So this whole bridge section in the middle looks a little bit more sparse than it did before, but I still think overall it looks pretty good, especially from a distance. I think this looks pretty cool. We'll see in reality how functional it is, since it does provide quite a detour for cars that want to go around. For instance, if a car wants to go from this highway over here, they have to come off and then take this long curve around and then get on, instead of just a tight corner as you would in a regular clover interchange. But I don't think that'll affect things too much given how long the route is. Anyway, I'd be shocked if we even had cars taking this route for quite a while, given how far it is, but it might be useful to maybe get a bus line or two running on this sometime in the near future. And so now that we have this connection made, I think our next step now is to take a look at our connections to Lincoln. We'll clean up some of this a bit more. We'll bring this highway through, maybe connect it up to here, and then bring out some of these roads here in Lincoln, so we get a bit more of a cleaner connection across the city, and it'll also overall hopefully draw more people in and out of the area. Alright, and so here is our next big milestone, and that is our highway connection to Lincoln. So we ended up making this 4-lane country road, and this is going to act as sort of a connected highway. It's not going to be a divided highway like the rest of our network is, since this is going to be relatively lower capacity than the rest of our network. Really, we're only going to see some demand from Lincoln coming up and taking this road, and then maybe in some extreme cases, once we finally connect up to Roswell, some people driving all the way down here and getting on at this interchange. And so I think ultimately this will help us with the design challenge of building out Lincoln's roads. I think this provides us a nice edge to build out to, and then maybe this side stays this sort of forested area. Maybe it's some sort of protected forest since we have our forest industries here. So I think this serving as an edge to Lincoln brings in some interesting possibilities in the future. Now, as to what we're going to do with this end here, we could bring that around and make that a part of Lincoln. We do have this or a part of Roswell. We do have this connection here, which maybe this road will curve down and will ultimately end up merging into this. Maybe we'll keep this connection as just a small 2-lane road for some really sort of niche connections that would need to use it. But I think ultimately this road's going to follow the base of this hill. This will turn into our 4-lane country road, and then maybe even this turns into a 4-lane road, and that's how we get into Roswell. I'm not too sure. That's probably a connection that's going to hold off, since technically we are connected through this road here. So that's not going to be a priority for quite a while. But coming back around over to this interchange, I was really struggling to merge the two divided highways into the country road in a way that looks good. Again, the streets don't like to merge very easily, so I think we ended up going with this sort of roundabout, which doesn't look great, and we haven't unlocked the roundabout yet in this street constructions tab. I'm not sure when we get that, but I think replacing this with a nicer roundabout, or maybe even we just extend this and do some decorating in the middle, something like that might work. But yeah, I was hoping we could keep the shape that we designed with, but I think these nodes are so close to each other, all these intersections here, that it sort of morphed the road to best conform to those. And it's not too awful. It doesn't look terrible from a distance. Flow-wise, it should work out just fine. We have no traffic lights here, so hopefully everything just flows smoothly as it should. I don't think this is going to be a very high flow intersection to begin with, so we shouldn't run into any traffic issues even if this doesn't work out exactly as intended. But again, I think that's just one solution, one of many solutions to these unique problems that we run into. And so now we can start to take a look at our destinations layer and analyze how some of our connections have done. So this 4-lane country road is definitely looking like it's making it easier for people to come in and out of Lincoln. We can see our 3 roads that connect to it are all getting used in both directions, and I assume that's heading out towards Roswell as well as towards Tacoma. As we can see out here, some people are using this, and we even end up with a bit more demand than we did at the start of this video, with about 10 people heading towards Tacoma, and then maybe 6, possibly 7 once we give it some more time, heading in towards Lincoln and or Roswell. Now, unfortunately, we have nothing going on here with this portion of our highway, but again, that's sort of to be expected given the long distance that cars would have to drive just to get here. Real quick, we can smooth out the terrain, since we did have to flatten quite a lot to get this to fit. But I don't think we're going to see many cars taking this until we maybe we build a person magnet at the cargo hub to simulate workers, or maybe we have a connection here at this farm and we have some independent buildings that we place down following up along the river here, generating a small amount of demand. I just don't think we're going to see many people using this portion of the highway, especially when it's competing with a train line that is about as direct but much quicker than cars are. So it's going to be hard to beat some of the existing infrastructure that we already have. But having this here will be vital in the future when we ultimately connect up to Roswell, and once we figure out how this connects into our cargo hub. Alright, and then quickly, just to sort of end off the video, I think we're going to extend this highway out a bit more. We're not really going to reach a destination with this. I think we're just going to start to think about the direction we want it to go in. And I think by that I mean we're going to bring it straight through, and I think right along here presents us a pretty good opportunity to not experience too many extreme elevation changes, but also get through in a way that could look quite nice. This might get a little weird. We might have to do a tunnel. I don't like just blowing tunnels through everything, so maybe it comes down and curves around. If we can think of a way that doesn't detour too much from the general direction we want to head in, I don't mind it. Again, I'm not sure if we would want to veer more this way towards Pittsburgh or this way as a more direct route towards Roswell and Monroe, but I think we're just going to extend this just to force ourselves to keep working on it, and hopefully in the end we'll have something that looks pretty decent. Alright, and so here's the last bit of highway that we're going to build out in this episode. So this, we'll start over here in Allentown. So this continues straight up the hill a bit. The goal was to leave enough space for maybe another interchange like this a little bit farther up. Once the city gets larger, that could be of use. And then continuing on, we headed off past these forest industries, and then here was a pretty good opportunity to bridge over this. I wanted to preserve this dirt road even though we don't really use it for anything. I think having this connection here does make sense since we have some iron mines. Now I'm not sure if these roads connect to any populated areas. I guess technically it could connect to Allentown. But it might be cool sometime in the future to maybe think about making sure all of our industries are connected to public roads that technically could be used by everyone. Even though we wouldn't probably see any private transportation go there. However, we could simulate it. Maybe we'll do that closer to the end of the series once we start wrapping things up around the map. But I think it's cool to leave this road here as this sort of winds under, up, and then around over our highway here. I think that's a pretty interesting dynamic. And then continuing on, we tunnel under this road, under this little ridge, pop out in this little depressed area of this hillside, where then we start to slowly wind down and descend down towards the riverside, where again we might be able to have another interchange here for this road, creating a bit more of a direct path from Pittsburgh. However, it would be a little bit slower given the 2-lane road here. So that might also provide an interesting dynamic there. That would also directly compete with our train line. But I do think the highway is a bit more out of the way than the train line, so I don't think we'd have to worry about that too much. And then we left it here since this leaves us with a good stopping point and some time to decide whether we want it to bridge across the river and go to the left, or come across here and cut by our steel industry, pretty much heading directly up to Monroe. And so I think with that, let's take a closer look at everything we've built out in this video, and then when we come back, we'll talk about some next steps and future projects. Alright, and so now that we're back, let's talk about some next steps and future projects. So, ending off here, continuing on with our highway project, obviously we have some ends here that we want to continue to extend. Now the fact that they're connected does leave us with a good stopping point, so maybe we'll take a moment to check out some other things on the map, but we'll leave this on our to-do list. We do want to connect this up. I did earlier in the video place this highway as sort of a guide. I was thinking maybe we run it parallel to the train station, and this is sort of an offshoot road, but I think ultimately this is going to end up connecting together, and then this highway comes straight through the cargo hub. I think that'd be a good way to sort of close off that portion, and it also brings it sort of full circle, connects it here, brings it straight into Lincoln, and then we don't really have to sort of have an awkward end to this highway. It just sort of slowly downgrades and dies into the city. And then soon, I think I want to get some food starting to come out of this area outside of Tacoma. We do have a farm here, which I don't think we're going to end up using, but I think having maybe this area out here be farms, or this area right here in the valley between these two hills here would be a pretty interesting spot to have some farms. And then maybe we have a food processing plant in this area, and this becomes a bit of a manufacturing center where we have oil coming in and food, and it's pretty close to the highway. I don't know, maybe that's something interesting to explore, but I think getting another resource chain in this area would be pretty useful, and I think it'd be interesting to try to fit in something unique like food in this area in a way that doesn't just ignore the context that's here. So maybe we can try reusing roads, we can try extending existing train lines. Something along those lines I think would be pretty fun to try out. Plus, getting that food, we would also be able to start feeding Tacoma. We can bring in, I'm not sure if we bring in food to Lincoln yet. We could probably start bringing food into Lincoln then, and overall just continue growing some of these cities across the map. And then something I'm also thinking about is, not right now, but far off in the future, getting another machines line or another goods line set up on this map. Those are the two most complicated resources to make, but I don't think we can supply the entire map just from one area of each. Maybe we choose either machines or goods, and we place a few industries there, and we sort of have like a super center of machines producing. But I think either machines or goods should have a second location on the map. So maybe we get goods in this area, or maybe up in these hills might be a good spot for some goods manufacturing. We have all this empty space in the middle of the map that I think we can use for something, and maybe it's steel production. This is a pretty hilly area. We could probably justify having a decent amount of iron and coal mines around the area, but that's just something to keep in mind, and something we might think about later on in the future when we start wanting to get every resource into every city on the map here. We're pretty close with most of our cities. I believe we can probably see it here. If we pull this up, we can see a lot of our cities are only really missing 2 or 3 resources at most, besides maybe Lincoln. I think Lincoln is our most underdeveloped city at the moment. But again, we are only really missing 2 or 3 resources per city, and a lot of those are either machines or goods. So sometime soon we'll want to start ramping that up when we want to sort of 100% all the objectives that we have for this map. Alright, and so with that, I think that's going to be all for this video. So if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or feedback, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.